Hello and welcome to NewFilmmakers Los Angeles. My name is Danny De Lillo. We're here at Emerson, Los Angeles. I'm delighted to be here with Sahan with his movie, Can I Have a Mask? Let's take a look at the clip. Sahan, I'm so happy to be here with you in person.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for bringing your film to us. I loved your film very much, but for those that haven't seen it, tell us a brief synopsis.
Yeah, for sure. So Can I Have a Mask is loosely based off of my brother's experience as a frontline worker in the early weeks of the pandemic. So it's about a father who is grappling with both his responsibilities as a doctor and as a father to a newborn child, as he's kind of sifting his way through those first kind of hectic weeks of the pandemic, like March 2020.
Well, the movie's very touching because it's based upon your brother, and thank you to your brother for being such a wonderful frontline worker and a great brother who documented his film. It's really touching because obviously everyone that has existed on planet Earth has kind of experienced this, but also I love how you put a real focus in on people that are out there on the front line working. I'm sure your brother is very humbled that you made this project, but when did the inspiration come for you in like deciding to turn this into a film?
Yeah, I mean, it was quite a journey. I know the pandemic affected a lot of people very differently, especially in those early few weeks. And I remember my brother and I mean, we were very close, and so we spoke on the phone very often in those first couple weeks, and I know that he was voicing his frustrations just because it's still during the point where we didn't really know about like the mask mandates. We didn't really know about this lack of PPE that was going to kind of define those first couple months, especially for frontline workers. So I know one day he kind of called me and sent me this essay titled Can I Have a Mask? And it was sort of his way of just getting out his frustrations and anger and stuff like that, and just putting it onto the page. And I remember I read it and I was like, this is one of the most beautiful things I've read. A lot of it was, medical jargon and stuff that I didn't really understand, but there was a lot of heart and emotion to it. And one, I was like a little frustrated because I'm out in Los Angeles. I'm trying to be like a writer director, and here my brother is writing a beautiful essay. He did it like he pulled an all-nighter and wrote this like beautiful thing, and I was a little frustrated. So I was like, all right, you gotta just be a doctor, like pick a lane, let me do the creative stuff. But I was genuinely moved to tears when I read this. The frustrating part about that, though, is that a lot of doctors and nurses at that time were feeling his same frustrations, but they couldn't voice their concerns and fear of losing their job. So around that time, a lot of doctors were sort of facing their hospital administrations, and even though they did feel this sort of frustration and feeling that they weren't being protected, they couldn't really do anything. So I sort of off the cuff said, let's try to make this into something. I know one person who is into animation, and let me just send it to him and see what sticks. I didn't really think anything was going to come of that, just because one, I've never made an animated film before, and then two, I don't know anything about being a doctor. But the essay, it kind of speaks to how, I guess, powerful my brother is as a writer. That essay resonated with Josh McMaster, who's the head animator and producer on this project. Resonated with him enough, and it resonated with our entire crew to really sort of build this thing out of nothing. So that's kind of where the inspiration came from. It was sort of a way to bring this story to life, and also just to pay tribute to my brother, who I know really wanted to get this story told, but had no real other means of telling it. So yeah.
You guys are the best siblings, I swear. Like honestly, like I love it. I love how you both used, your talents and creativity to this story. Because I think back then as well, especially I'm sure for your brother too, most people were just expecting. I mean, the frontline workers, particularly doctors and nurses, were superheroes, but they were asked to do the most insane things. Like they were invincible for some reason, and they could just. And I just love how you documented just kind of the stress and the struggles and the trials and tribulations, because this really was happening. Making this into an animation was a whole other touch to it, and it was a very emotional piece. I was emotional, watching it too. I'm just curious, like, how did you kind of go about maybe the sort of with working with your animators? How does that work for you as a director, working with your animators and kind of articulating this story and style that you want?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was really tough. One, I was sort of learning from the ground up. Was really relying on my brother for just telling us whether or not we were depicting the scenes correctly and whether or not these characters would actually be able to do these things. And then two, just learning about the animation process kind of on the fly was just me trusting my animators and other producers on the project to really kind of guide me. But a lot of our inspiration came from just old school sort of 2D animation from Disney and things like that. And a lot of the creative decisions were really sort of brought on by time. So the animation process is a very long and laborious process. But the thing that we were kind of battling against, both with budget constraints, the thing that we were trying to do is get this out in a timely fashion, so that it actually, when it still matters. So we kind of set this arbitrary date of October when we wanted to release it out into the public, and that kind of cascaded through, and that was sort of how we dictated every sort of creative decision. So whether that meant animating every frame or every 3 frames, how is that going to save us time? If we're going to, sort of ink and paint at the same time as we're animating and things like that. And we spent a lot of time in prep with the animatic and making sure that we had every single shot lined up perfectly, so that when we actually did bring on other people and other members of the team, it was streamlined, because we couldn't afford to be 5 months down in the animation process and wanted to change up the story. So we really had to lock things down very, very early on, so that we can kind of, once we actually hit the ground running, it was a train that really couldn't be stopped.
Yeah, amazing. It's so interesting taking it from your own loved sibling perspective. You turn it into a film and then bringing this out to a worldwide audience during a time when so many people have been going through so many different things. But I really love how you put the understanding of really what was at stake and what was going through the mental perspective of, people are out there just fighting for people's lives, you know what I mean, and working to fight. What did you kind of, alongside the testament to your brother, what did you kind of want your audience to kind of really take from this film? Because it was the most powerful 3 minutes, honestly.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we viewed it as sort of a time capsule of that moment. I think a lot of things have happened in the past year and a half. But there was that sort of pocket of time where people were still learning about the virus and still learning about how it affected, everybody in different ways. But I think something that was kind of overlooked in those first couple months was how much pressure we were putting on our healthcare workers, and it was something that was talked about in the first couple months, but obviously got buried underneath a lot of other things that happened in the past year. So we always sort of pitched this as, if you watch this 6 months, 6 years from now, it'll kind of resonate the same way. And we want people to look back and remember, oh wow, that there was a huge sacrifice and a huge burden that we placed on these healthcare workers, and they got the job done without complaining, without causing a riot or anything like that. They put their head down, they gritted, and they did the work that was asked of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I love your creative vision,
Thank you.
and I'm so curious about what kind of stories you want to tell and any inspirations that you kind of have along that journey.
Yeah, I mean, those are kind words. I appreciate it. I don't know. I mean, working with my brother and working with your siblings, my sister was a graphic designer as well and helped us out in the process. I'm lucky to be able to share that story in particular, and stories like that I hope to tell in the future. And honestly, if I could work with my family on every project,
Yes.
I think that's the goal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm blessed to have this opportunity, and I'm blessed to have worked with people I care about.
You got a talented and caring family. My goodness, how wonderful. What is next for you that you're looking to work on, though? Is there anything particular that you're working on next?
Not at the moment. I mean, ideally, I think for people like me, kind of starting out in this industry, we're at a very interesting time where diversity is kind of at the forefront at a lot of decisions that studios are making and things like that. So I hope to at least be a part of that movement and be able to tell stories that can resonate to people that haven't had those stories told. So that's whatever I do next. I'm hoping to kind of funnel it through that vision.
Wonderful, wonderful. And just finally, I know obviously you're early in your career, but is there anything you kind of learned from this project, or anything that you can put out there to our audience as a filmmaking audience that kind of helps you on your journey?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was really to sort of dive into a story that in a medium that I had never worked with before, and material that I know is very sensitive, especially coming from somebody as close, like, it's a story that my brother wanted to tell. You really have to, I guess when you're venturing out on something that you don't really know how to do, it's all about the people around you. And so I cannot stress that enough, that this project would not have been made, nobody got paid, we had no budget at all. We were just kind of working through our bootstraps and really trying to make it happen. So one, if you have a story that you believe in, it'll inspire the rest of your team. And two, you gotta learn how to trust people, and they have to learn how to trust you. And I think that was over anything else. I think I've been working in the film industry for the past 4 years. I think this is the most informative 8 months of my entire life, just learning how to tell a story from the ground up with little to no resources. It's all about trust in the process, trust in your crew, and then trust that the story is powerful enough to actually kind of get you there.
Well, thank you for your TED Talk. No, really appreciate it. No, thank you very much, Sahan. A big thank you to your brother and your whole family, and I hope you get to make more work with your family, because that's where the trust and love lies too, and it's have to keep it in the core of the family. But thanks so much for bringing this film to us, and we can't wait to see much more of your work. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sahan, everybody.